Hello there. This is your host PR here. Before I get started on this video, I'm just gonna say there's going to be spoilers about the event that I'm talking about, which is going to be Marvel Civil War 2 with a little bit of Marvel Civil War the movie. So Marvel Civil War 2 is pretty much a movie where a series where there's a inhuman that is born that can predict the future, or at least gets visions of possible futures. And what the two sides are, which is Carol Danvers and Tony Stark, what they want to do is Carol Danvers wants to use this Inhuman in order to prevent certain things from happening or certain disasters. Where Tony Stark kind of gets to the point where he kind of wants to say, "Hey, we shouldn't put our all of our stake into this one guy who can apparently see the future." And it's weird because it's not weird, but it starts off with this vision doing wonderful things. He sees this giant threat that comes towards the Earth that would cause a lot of damage and destruction, and they're actually able to handle that problem before it actually causes any damage. But within the first issue, it goes south real quickly because they kind of want to attack Thanos because Ulysses sees a vision where Thanos gets the cosmic cube and it goes south, killing Rhodey and putting She-Hulk in the hospital. And throughout the series, Tony Stark gets affected by the fact that Rhodey dies, and he figures he's going to figure out how this Inhuman's powers work. This Inhuman's powers work in a way that can't be discovered because Jean Grey can't read his mind. So there's no other way other than Tony apparently scanning his brain. And when he does, scan the brain, you learn that it's just, a probable future, or he's just guessworking for the most part. And the issue that I had with this series is that, well, it was a lot of series that I've had with a lot of comic books from Marvel, and one of them being that they didn't have a lot of consistency with it, and it's kind of the event is going about a weird way. For example, at a certain point, you know, while Tony Stark has Ulysses and Carol Danvers and the humans attack Tony Stark in order to get their Inhuman back, Ulysses shows a vision of the Hulk just killing all of the Avengers. And at this point, Ulysses his powers kind of develop in a way that it makes it so everybody else can see that vision as well, which kind of creates pretty good introspectives in other comics, like in Miles Morales' comic, but I'll talk about that later. So at that point, Carol Danvers and Tony Stark, their first reaction is to bring all the Avengers to the Hulk. First of all, that's not a good idea. If you see a vision where somebody kills a certain set of people, not bringing those sets of people near the Hulk can possibly either create a different future automatically or maybe set something in stone. So I can understand why they might do something like that in order to prevent it, but I didn't think bringing the whole Avengers to Bruce Banner as a Hulk would be a good idea. Also, at this point, Bruce Banner was also cured of the Hulk, and we had a new Hulk by the name of Adameus Cho, I think his name is. But once again, it becomes a whole weird situation because the first thing they do is they come and talk to Bruce Banner, and they kind of do it in a weird way where Beast hacks his work, and then Bruce Banner gets a little annoyed that the fact that people just walked to his house, hacked his computers, and were like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And it was a weird process, and it ended up with the Hulk dead. And my problem with that was that before Secret Wars, there was a mutant by the name of Benjamin something who had the power to shapeshift his face as well as create pheromones that kind of makes anybody who's around him or anybody he's mimicking feel good about themselves. And it made me feel weird because it was a character that Bendis himself created, and he wrote that he's writing the current event Civil War 2. So I was wondering, is this guy dead, or why is he not talking to the Hulk? Why is it that we're going to have all the Avengers here, the people who would die in the mission, but none of the X-Men were just like, "Hey, there's this guy that we have that kind of makes people feel good about themselves and calm down. Let's bring that guy here to talk to the Hulk, or the guy who could become the Hulk, so there's no way he can Hulk out because he's making him feel relaxed." But anyway, they didn't do that. Hawkeye ends up killing Bruce Banner because he thinks that he's about to Hulk out. and he gets acquitted for his trials. And that's when Tony Stark finds out, how Ulysses' brain works. So at that point, this story is pretty much going a route that kind of makes you want to go, Tony Stark seems like he's in the right. Because with all of this information, even after Beast kind of confirms it with Carol Danvers, it's kind of one of those situations where Carol Danvers is still like, I'm still going to do this. I'm still going to go about it this way. And the weird part about it is, even during that explanation of how Ulysses' powers work, they show like Carol Danvers arresting this woman who was, believed to have had a bomb in her suitcase because Ulysses predicted it. And once again, it kind of played along the lines of, okay, sure, we have these visions, but aren't you guys going about it the wrong way? If you had somebody who had a bomb in their briefcase, why not get somebody who can snatch that from her? Because it wasn't handcuffed to her from what it looked like. Also, there was a lot of ways to deal with a situation like that without it being like to a certain extreme. And that's what it seems like Carol Danvers was doing with each of these predictions, and why they've had such bad results. With Thanos and getting the cosmic cube, I can understand her going about and trying to stop Thanos as soon as possible. Even though the cosmic cube became some little girl and is with Bucky, so I don't know why they didn't go check up on her first. But I'm not going to get into that. And the next thing that happened with the purse thing, with the briefcase, it was just like, why didn't they get somebody to just snatch the briefcase, or why didn't they just go about it more covertly to confirm that that the prediction was true? And even when she says to Tony, like, if someone says that there's a 10% chance of somebody having a gun, I'm going to go check it out before he pulls out that gun. And once again, that's fine, but the way she checked it out was pretty much saying, hey, that guy might have a gun. All right, let's get the whole army to take out this one guy who may have a gun. And I think that, and at the end of the fourth issue, they kind of show it as Tony Stark seems like he's obviously in the right. They have it where it's like two teams set up, Carol Danvers versus Tony Stark. And Tony Stark has like Stephen Strange, two Captain Americas, a Spider-Man, the younger X-Men, as well as like Miss Marvel, who was a fan of Carol Danvers. And when you read their tie-in comics, like Miss Marvel's tie-in, Miles Morales' tie-in, it adds more weight to their decisions for whose side they pick, because Miss Marvel was originally on Captain Marvel's side because she's a big fan of that person. And then out of nowhere, a certain set of events happened, and she's just like, yeah, we probably shouldn't be relying on this guy's power. And it's weird because it's like, it's not any events that happen in the main event, but it happens in a side story. And I wish they would have had a little more main event things happening that would show you their divides, because when the Hulk dies, they show that Nova and Spider-Man are on Tony's side, but they don't show how Miss Marvel just decides to choose to go on Tony's side. It's like, hey, you have to buy this book in order to understand why she's even over there. So at that point, after issue 4, they show that this big battle's about to happen, and at some point it gets delayed because if you notice, some of the writers like Bendis and whatnot were saying that the artist needed more work to get the art done for the project, and the event is being extended to like, I think like maybe early 2017. I know it's like by the end of the year it might be done. And the thing that got to me was like, I was reading around the forums, and it might be my fault, but I read around the forums, and there was a lot of hype towards some of the pictures, some of the things that were going on. And then when issue 5 dropped, the art was amazing, but a lot of the stuff that was going on in the comic story-wise just didn't do anything for me. And at some point, at the end of that fight, Ulysses' his powers begin to grow again, and like he's able to send this vision to the people even though he's miles away from them. And the vision was that Miles Morales was going to kill Captain America. And the thing that bothered me about that the most was that they didn't really show like the actual vision happening. They just, well, not like, in a way it was like this. So they showed Miles Morales holding on to Captain America's body, blood on his hands and his heart, and Tony, and not Tony, Steve Rogers kind of impaled by something, by a wooden stake. But they don't actually show the event of Miles Morales killing him. They just show Miles Morales holding his dead body in a way that seems very suspicious. And I've noticed with a lot of these visions, they don't really show, people, like they show that he can show other people going through the vision itself, but it's not like they're actually experiencing the vision, meaning that you don't have Miles Morales experiencing him killing Captain America. He just has a dead body in his hands and there was blood on it. And once again, with the whole fact that there is the fact that Ulysses' powers work based off of probability and all that whatnot, that Miles Morales shouldn't completely believe that, but Miles Morales still feels bad about what happened because he's just like, yeah, I'm still holding his dead body. That's just suspect as hell. And even though this comic took a while to get to where it was delayed for like 2 weeks, almost a month. It felt like it was not worth the hype, and it's slowly making me lose interest in the event because it makes you wonder how are they going to go about that, because they're not going I feel like they're not going to talk about how Miles feels about how that whole event happened unless you read his comic book, which I understand. I understand why Marvel wants to do things like that, but when it comes to storytelling, it seems like it's kind of weird that you want to, add these type of cliffhangers or these type of things that you want people to delve into and save it for other side of the book. And it's one thing when it's just like some small minor character and you just want to know more about that minor character. But this is a main thing that's happening. This is something that pushes the story forward and you kind of just want to know a little more about that character and how he's feeling or going through that. And it's kind of weird how, like, compared to the movie version of Civil War, a lot of the things that are happening, it seems like, there was no one true right side. Captain America was in the right as well as Tony Stark. Yes, Tony, you could understand like why he felt the need to go after Bucky when he found out Bucky killed his parents, and you can understand why Steve wanted to protect him even though he knew that was the case, because once again Bucky was brainwashed. There was no right side, and it just felt weird that there was so much character development and so much, ways to tell a story, or good ways that a story was told in the movie scene, and it seems like it's not, the comic book universe is not getting that same kind of respect. And I know why, because there's huge budgets and whatnot, when you put it into a movie. So you want people to buy that movie. And people have shown that they like the storytelling that is in some of these movie aspects. But when it comes to this event, the Secret Wars event, I feel like, not Secret Wars, Civil War 2. When it comes to Civil War 2, it feels like it's just not, it's a bunch of events that could have been handled a lot differently, and they're being taken to certain extremes in order to get into the fighting scenes or the argument scenes, because if this was handled the way that it should have been handled, yes, there would have been a little bit of, bickering between Carol and Tony, but it wouldn't have gone as far as it did in one issue. Rhodey would not have died in one issue, or at least it would have been a little more worthwhile if something happened. And the odd thing is that since the vision didn't come true, it's obvious to believe that his visions are not absolute. But that's kind of the thing that happens with time travel being a plot, or time or the future being a plot. And we should know that that's a problem. Like, issues with the future, or changing the past or changing the future, can be problematic. They literally had 5 X-Men from the past in the present who fought X-Men from the future who went to the present. And I think like they have one guy who was from the future in the present that is arrested. Looks like Charles Xavier. And they know that this is something that like they should tread lightly with. They shouldn't be like They shouldn't be going balls deep into this situation like, oh, this Inhuman can see the future. Let's follow this guy like his every whim. And even in certain tie-ins, like with A-Force, when She-Hulk talks about like how it's not his future, don't let him dictate it, and Carol Danvers takes it as don't let Tony Stark dictate the future. Dazzler's even just like, hey, that doesn't just mean, you know, Tony Stark. That could have been anybody. Hell, the last person she saw was Thanos. She could have been talking about Thanos because Thanos is a ruthless ass dude. And the reason I just wanted to talk about this was because there was just a huge delay in the comic, and I kind of felt underwhelmed by everything that was going on. The art was really good. I really liked the art direction that was gone about, but I wish there was a little more motion in the comics. When they were showing that Miles Morales was going to kill Captain America, I wanted to see, you know, how Miles Morales felt about, you know, killing Captain America. I wanted to see him actually go through the act of killing Captain America instead of just holding his dead body. Because, once again, there's been a lot of scenes in Miles Morales' book even where there were just Avengers knocked out and he was just there just looking around like, what the fuck's going on? And then, like, Peter Parker would be like, what did you do? Because like, no, I know what happened. I know what was going on. We can solve this. And I get why they were so quick to say, because Carol Danvers just goes, I'm sorry, Miles, you're under arrest. We have to do something about this. And that's where the cliffhanger leads, because Miles Morales is so shocked that he's holding this, you know, person's body. And it doesn't seem like the emotion that he had for it doesn't really isn't really shown as well, because once again, you don't see him actually killing Captain America. You're just supposed to assume because he's holding the dead body and all that whatnot that he did. And it's Steve Rogers Captain America, not Sam Wilson. Which the fight in itself was pretty cool. I don't know how Stephen Strange was easily counteracted by Storm. I don't know how that happened, because once again, magic is it's a load of bull. Like, you could do a lot of things with magic. And speaking of which, magic teleported Sam Wilson into Hollywood, or towards Hollywood or California, which was a cool little thing. Like how she was easily able to separate people. And I feel like it was one of those things where the event was aesthetically pleasing for the most part, but the storytelling aspect just didn't get it to me. I don't know. I'll have to look a little more into it, read it a couple more times. I've read it 3 times, and I still feel like something is missing from the story aspect. And I just wanted to get my first thoughts about it off before I actually do a podcast with my friends. We do a podcast. We haven't thought of a name yet, so we're just working on that. But yeah, that is all I'm going to talk about. Thanks for listening to me ramble about Marvel and all that whatnot. If you like what you saw, just leave a like or download it or whatever. I don't know where I'm going to put this platform, but if I feel like this is something that's worth, you know, doing again, I'm going to do more of these. They're like little vlogs, and I'm probably going to just play some video game under it too. So I'll catch you guys next time.